Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we sift through the corporate jargon to find the real story. Today we're diving into a filing that's all about managing digital assets and a big shift in how Grayscale Litecoin Trust is handling its precious Litecoins. Get ready because this report is like a digital treasure map and we're about to find out who is holding the keys. Before we dive in, if you like getting straightforward insights from these dense corporate filings, make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to connect with fellow corporate explorers and discuss these findings, join our Discord community, linked in the description below. Alright, let's get straight into it. This is a Form 8K, which basically means something significant has happened that the company needs to tell the public about right away. For Grayscale Litecoin Trust, or LTC as it's known, this is a pretty big deal because they're making a major change in who's looking after their Litecoins and how. The main event here is the signing of a new prime broker agreement. Think of this as a super important contract that Grayscale Litecoin Trust has entered into a new agreement with Coinbase. Now, Coinbase isn't just a place to buy and sell crypto. In this deal, they're stepping up as the prime broker and also the custodian. That means they're responsible for keeping the trust's Litecoins safe, and also for handling the messy details of trading and moving them around. This new agreement is with Coinbase Inc., and it covers what they're calling custodial and prime broker services. It's a pretty comprehensive deal, including things like a custody services agreement and a settlement and transfer agreement. Essentially, it lays out exactly how Coinbase will safeguard the trusts, Litecoins which are held in accounts managed by Coinbase Custody Trust Company, LLC. They also mention Coinbase Credit Incorporated, making up the Coinbase entities involved. Now, this agreement was officially signed on the 3rd of October 2025, but here is a crucial detail. It doesn't actually kick in for the trust until the day its shares start trading on NYSE as what's called an exchange-traded product. They're calling this the uplisting date. So, even though the ink is dry on the paper, the real action begins later when the trust goes through the significant upgrade in how it's traded. Let's talk about where the Litecoins are actually kept. A big chunk of the trust Litecoins will be in what they call the vault balance. This is where Coinbase Custody will hold the Litecoins, and importantly, they will control the private keys that allow these Litecoins to be moved. For extra security, most of these private keys for the vault balance will be kept offline, a method known as cold storage. This is a really safe way to protect digital assets, making them much harder for hackers to get to. Then there is something called the settlement balance. At the sponsor's discretion, some Litecoins might be moved here. These will be on a ledger kept by Coinbase, the prime broker. This settlement balance can be held in different ways, either in omnibus cold storage wallets, omnibus hot storage wallets, or with what they call Coinbase connected venues. Hot storage means the private keys are online, which makes moving assets faster but also more risky. The settlement balance is kept separate from the vault balance. And for even more security, the private key shards, which are like puzzle pieces of the keys, are spread out across secure vaults all over the world. This means if one vault were ever compromised, it wouldn't give access to all the Litecoins. This geographical distribution is a key security measure. A really important point here is how they are treating these digital assets. The agreement emphasizes that the custodian, Coinbase, acts as a fiduciary. This means they have a legal duty to act in the best interest of the trust. The Litecoins in the vault balance are considered fiduciary assets, meaning they always belong to the trust and are not treated as the custodian's own assets. Coinbase is making strong promises that they have no right or title to this Litecoin and will not lend or pledge it. Similarly, for the Litecoins in the settlement balance, the prime broker is also promising that they are holding these for the benefit of the trust and will not sell, transfer, or loan them out. This separation of assets is vital for investor protection. It's designed to ensure that even if the custodian or prime broker runs into financial trouble, the trust's Litecoins are protected. The agreement also mentions they're treating these digital assets as financial assets under a specific section of New York law. This is a legal maneuver to further strengthen the argument that these digital assets are truly owned by the trust and not part of the custodian's general assets, especially if the custodian faced bankruptcy. Coinbase has stated publicly that they believe courts would not consider these custody digital assets part of their general estate. When it comes to safekeeping, Coinbase is committed to using commercially reasonable efforts. All Litecoins in the vault balance will be clearly identified as belonging to the trust, held separately and not mixed with other digital assets. They will also take steps to ensure the private keys for the vault balance are secure, without disclosing them to the trust or sponsor in a way that would require them to be licensed under certain financial regulations. For the settlement balance, where Litecoins might be in omnibus wallets, meaning multiple clients share those wallets, the trust's share will still be clearly tracked on an internal ledger. This ensures transparency even if the assets themselves are not individually segregated in every single wallet. What about insurance? The agreement requires the custodian to maintain commercially reasonable insurance. Coinbase has stated that they have fidelity or crime insurance coverage. This is meant to protect against losses from theft, including theft by their own employees. However, it is important to note that this insurance coverage has limits, and Coinbase has also mentioned in their filings that the total value of crypto assets they hold is significantly larger than their insurance coverage. So, while Terry's insurance, it is not a complete safety net for every possible scenario. The custodial and prime broker services cover the holding of Litecoins, transferring them between balances, depositing them from the blockchain, and withdrawing them. However, there are some conditions. Coinbase can refuse or cancel transactions if required by law, or if they reasonably believe a transaction might violate regulations. They can also suspend or terminate access to these services if the trust or sponsor doesn't follow the rules, or if they are ordered by a government authority. When it comes to security, the private keys for even the hot wallets are kept on secure servers or offline. Coinbase is obligated to use commercially reasonable efforts to keep these keys secure and not disclose them. They also have information security programs in place to protect electronic systems and confidential information. If there is a data security event, they promise to notify the trust and sponsor promptly. The process of generating these keys is also pretty high-tech. They use very secure methods, including quantum random number generators, in secret key generation ceremonies, held in special enclosures to block outside interference. After the keys are generated, all the equipment used is destroyed. It's a highly controlled offline process, ensuring only Coinbase has access to these key shards. As we mentioned earlier, these private key shards are distributed geographically. This is a common and smart practice in crypto security. For the vault balance, they rely heavily on cold storage, meaning the keys are kept offline. For the settlement balance, a mix of cold and hot storage is used to balance security and the speed needed for creating and redeeming shares. Cold storage is emphasized as a method with multiple layers of protection, ensuring private keys are generated and stored offline. Hot storage, while faster, presents more risk of theft or loss. The security procedures for moving assets involve multiple encrypted private key shards, usernames, passwords, and two-step verification. The goal is to eliminate any single point of failure. So if one secure vault is compromised, the entire operation isn't jeopardized. Maintaining accurate records is crucial. Coinbase is required to keep records for at least 7 years. They must also allow the trust or its representatives to inspect and audit these records with reasonable notice. They are also obligated to notify the trust of any audit findings that reveal material deficiencies. Grayscale Litecoin Trust and its sponsor are also carrying out their own checks. They review what are called Services Organization Controls, or CC1 and CC2 reports each year. On top of that, they can inspect or audit Coinbase's records directly. This can include checking balances against the blockchain itself and making sure the digital assets are linked to the trust's public keys. They can even initiate small test transactions to confirm the software functionality for handling private keys. The trust can also request representation letters quarterly to stay updated on any changes to the SOC reports. Now, what happens if something goes wrong? The custodian will use commercially reasonable efforts to safeguard the Litecoins. They are liable for losses if they result from negligence, fraud, or willful misconduct. However, there are caps on their total liability. For the custodial entities, the maximum liability is the greater of the value of the assets involved in the incident, fees paid over the last 12 months, or $5 million US. For the custodian's liability related to cold storage addresses, there is a specific limit of $100 million per address called the cold storage threshold. If the value of Litecoins in a cold storage address exceeds this threshold, the trust may not have a claim against the custodian for the amount over that limit. The good news is that both the trust and the custodial entities have agreed to indemnify each other, meaning they'll cover certain claims or losses for specific situations, with some exceptions. Of course, these services come with fees. The sponsor will pay an annualized fee to Coinbase based on the trust's monthly assets under custody. There is also a monthly fee for handling deposits and withdrawals related to creating and redeeming shares. This prime broker agreement will stay in effect until one party terminates it. There are specific notice periods required for termination, and neither party can just walk away without fulfilling their obligations. The trust can terminate with 30 days notice, or immediately for specific reasons like custodian cause. Coinbase can terminate with 180 days notice or for cause. If termination happens without cause, Coinbase will help transfer the assets to another provider. On another note, the sponsor has also engaged Banai Mellon Asset Servicing to provide administrative and accounting services, starting the 9th of October 2025. This is a separate agreement focused on the more traditional fund administration side. And finally, as a result of this new prime broker agreement with Coinbase, the previous custodian agreement, which was in place since June 2022, will be terminated as of the uplisting date. So it's a complete handover of custody services. So what does all this mean? Grayscale Litecoin Trust is essentially upgrading its security and operational infrastructure by partnering with Coinbase for prime brokerage and custody services. This move is likely aimed at improving efficiency, security, and preparing for a potential listing as an ETF-like product on a major exchange. The emphasis on cold storage, geographical distribution of keys, and fiduciary responsibility are all positive signs for asset protection. However, the limitations on insurance and liability, especially the cold storage threshold, are important risks to keep in mind. The reliance on Coinbase, while a major player, also means the trust is subject to Coinbase's operational security and business health. The move indicates a commitment to professionalizing the management of digital assets, which could pave the way for broader adoption and easier access for investors. Alright, that is our breakdown of Grayscale Litecoin Trust's latest filing. What is your take on these new arrangements with Coinbase and what they signal for the trust? As future, drop your thoughts in the comments below if this analysis was valuable. Hitting that like button really helps us out, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of corporate finance. And don't forget to check out our Discord community in the description for more in-depth discussions. Thanks for watching, see you next time.